Hello, my name is Katie Groves, and this is part 12 in my series on deprogramming from trauma-based mind control. If you've not done so already, I ask that you please watch the first 2 parts of this series linked in the description below for disclaimers and safety measures you can take while watching these videos. In this video, I'm going to talk about mindful thinking. Now, this is kind of a funny phrase because oftentimes when people speak of mindfulness, they speak of observation, of inner stillness, of transcending thought, and observing one's thoughts without interruption, without judgment, mental labeling. While that is incredibly important for a mindfulness practice, I've found that as a mind control survivor, it can be very challenging to simply watch my thoughts, that I often feel like I have to engage with parts as they come up and converse with them as a multiple. And so I found that introducing strategic ways of thinking to programmed parts can really help deprogram myself. So I'm going to talk about first what programmed thoughts often look like. So programmed thoughts for me have been typically repetitive. They come in the form of song or chants. Sometimes they're nonsensical, sometimes they're violent, but they oftentimes contain, if not on the surface, in the underlying framework of the programming, they contain thoughts that are very black and white in nature. It's hard to talk about that for me. Just the words black and white. Thinking about duality is very triggering as a survivor of Monarch mind control. One of the first things that I found out about myself as a Monarch survivor was that I had been programmed to think in dualities. Up and down, black and white, left and right. Those words chanted in my head all the time. And so to find a middle ground, that is the essence of mindfulness. And while it is often done simply through observation, for me I found it's best to introduce statements, affirmations that can help neutralize the black and white thinking, that speak the truth, that things are not really so absolute, that there is a gray. One of the things about this is that I think is important to share is that black and white thought is often a product of trauma. That people who are traumatized often go into black and white thinking, parts of their brain shut down, and more rudimentary, rigid forms of thought take over. So people with PTSD often experience black and white thinking, especially in complex PTSD, and especially from childhood trauma. So thoughts like, I will never be safe, no one will ever love me, I will always be alone, I'm ugly, my life is hopeless, I should just die. The world is an unsafe place, the world is ugly, right? These aren't just PTSD thoughts, these are complex PTSD thoughts. And so as a survivor of Monarch mind control with severe complex PTSD underneath my severe dissociative identity disorder, I had the pleasure of dealing with naturally occurring black and white thinking that is reinforced by my programming. So recognizing this natural tendency to go to the black and white, not just from my programming, but from my trauma, has been helpful. And recognizing that as a traumatized person, while changing my thoughts to change my traumatized state is helpful, changing my traumatized state to change my thoughts can be even more helpful. So when I talked in my previous video about mindful breathing, I was talking about changing my breath, although a lot of it was just about observing my breath, but at the end I did mention that changing my breath through deepening it, lengthening my exhalations as opposed to my inhalations has been helpful. And it's been helpful in slowing down the production of stress hormones, reducing this traumatized state, the active level of activation that I experience. So I've learned that trying to change my mind to change my body is helpful, but not as effective as trying to change my body and my mind to influence each other at the same time. So coupling breathing exercises with making neutral statements has been helpful. I find that doing this all holistically as much as I can, which can be hard with my multiplicity, is better for me than doing things completely one piece at a time. So what's an example of a neutral statement of a mindful thought? First of all, one of the things that mindfulness has helped me to see is that things are not always obviously absolutely true. So when a part says, I will never be safe, I can say to that part, perhaps, maybe you will never be safe. What is safety? And when I ask for definitions of terms, right, when I inquire without judgment, I often get back, if the part is willing to engage with me at all, another black and white response. So that part might say, safety is when everything goes my way. Safety is when no one hurts me. You know? Or it might just be safety is when I'm safe, and that part is small, and that part can't define it any more deeply than that. And then I can bring mindful attention to that part and say, well, what makes you feel safe? And that part might say, simply, when no one is hurting me. And I'll ask, is anyone hurting you right now? And if someone inside is hurting them, and they bring that to my attention, I can deprogram that with them, typically. And then I can proceed. And when it gets to a core layer of that part, where their programming starts to break down, then I can introduce more powerful affirmations. So let's say that part says, well, I'll never be safe because I'm ugly. And the assumption there is that people will hurt me always because I'm ugly. And that's when I ask that part, well, are you the ugliest person in the world? And parts might say, yes, I am, but often they'll say, well, no, I don't think so. I don't think I'm the ugliest person in the world. And that starts to engage them in a concept of gray area. Because they may simply say, I'm ugly, but not the ugliest in the world, but by saying that they're ugly, when they've been programmed dualistically, it implies that they are on the extreme end. There's a polarization there. And so in recognizing that my parts are polarized, and when they say, I'm ugly, they often do actually feel like they're the ugliest person in the world. When asking them about it, when inquiring into it, I can find out whether or not there is something deeper in them that knows that there is a middle ground, that they might not be the ugliest person. And of course, eventually I want that part to see that they're beautiful, radiantly beautiful. But this is not about telling a part that they're wrong, specifically telling a part that they're on the wrong side of a duality. It's about neutralizing the duality and helping them to see that it's not really so important. Whatever they've been taught to believe about themselves is not only probably not true, but it's not actually that important. And that letting go of ego will bring a part into a state of mindfulness like nothing else. Okay, that's all I got for this video. The next video, I will continue talking about mindfulness, more tools. Thank you.